when you're just showing the highlights of yourself on social media. That's, to me, that's bullshit, because I'm not afraid of telling you what's going on and being real. But I just choose to not share that, not because I don't want you to know that I've had pain in my life, but don't get it twisted. I've had pain in my life when it comes to my family, and I just have never I'm just very careful with who I share that with. I have a hard time trusting some people. Episode 10 of the It's Always Something podcast, produced by Big Night Media. I was just informed by my producer Hurley that the number 7 as far as podcast episodes is the magic number, because then after 7, you don't have shit to talk about. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what people say.
It's pretty accurate, man. I'm getting to the end here. I feel like I should do my podcast in series. You know what I mean? We'll do like pockets of series of 10s. Mm-hmm. That way I can go back and we can just start at episode 1, because there was so much excitement with episode 1. I feel once we get into the 11s, and the 12s, I'm running out of things here, man. My life.
Just like start a new season.
Yeah, just start. Yeah. This is my pilot season of podcasts. Very grateful to have made it this far. I feel like we've hit puberty of the podcast world, like double digits, man. A whole new world.
Yeah, let's go.
Like I wonder what's gonna happen at episode 100. You think I'll be able to dunk? After episode 100, I wonder what cool superpowers come with.
Yeah, with every episode, you actually gain an inch of your vertical.
It's so like an inch of my vertical.
By 100, it's going to be insane.
Right. Or I'm like Deadpool. I'm just getting tortured until I actually mutate into this mega podcaster. No, honestly, my name is JD. If you're new to the show, I'm here to admit that when I text back, ha 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 ha, I really only laugh around 37% of the time. I'm just being honest. I know that's putting myself out there. I also love people who not only raise their hand to acknowledge you stopped for them, but then quickly jog or have a quicker pep in their step. Like when you're grocery shopping and someone's, coming across the street, you're driving. All I ask is that you acknowledge, that I'm there ready to run you over. Like, hey, please don't. Like, just be respectful.
My friends always make fun of me for that.
What, like saying thank you?
Not
thank you.
Waving, but like quickly crossing the street, like to help out traffic going by.
If you're not giving me a quick jog or that I know there's some energy, you deserve to get ran over.
I mean, we're from Boston. Everything's fast.
Especially out here. It's so crazy. Yeah. I would think, you're like, hey, move the fuck out of the way.
You're glad I don't hit you.
It's a peaceful scenario. I just wanted to get that out there because that happened to me earlier this week. And I was just like, you know what? I need to bring this up. It's really important because I just want to acknowledge those people who do that. The episode with Mike last week was insane. It was probably one of my biggest episodes yet. We put up a Booked and Busy mug in the merch shop. I think it almost sold out. I haven't gotten the final numbers, but it did really well. I mean, it's a perfect IG mug.
Oh yeah.
So that's in the store. That sold like crazy. Beyond grateful for the support up to this point on whatever platform. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can tell that we have a awesome fly logo, but episode 10 is just, I really do believe it's a milestone, and hopefully everyone had an awesome Father's Day over the weekend. As I reflected on Father's Day, I couldn't help but think of some of my friends and family who didn't have a good Father's Day. My best friend just lost his dad last week. There are people that obviously are struggling because their fathers aren't doing so well. My grandpa on my dad's side is just like mentally gone. You know what I mean? He's entered that phase of his life. So that's kind of tough to watch, especially for my pops, having to be a little bit more hands-on, or, maybe your dad wasn't around, or, had substance or physical abuse stuff going on, or died at a young age, or you haven't really gotten to know him. Father's Day and these kind of holidays, they're touchy subjects, man. It's family. When you get down to the core of things, it's really the one thing that is just heavy. It's family, dude. It's the root of everything. So for Episode 10, I actually wanted to get relatively serious for a second because I don't think people know me as someone who can be serious. I've been told that numerous times. Not because I'm putting on a facade, but I'm a very private person, right? And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm wearing these blue light glasses. One, because they're good for my eyes. And I was very meticulous putting together this episode, so I'll kind of be gazing at my notes here throughout. But number two, I think it's because I look sexy as fuck. I mean, if we're just being honest with each other, I look like a walking cologne model. I mean, let's just be real, you know? And can't you just, if you're looking at me, Hurley, like when you look at me, don't you believe that I read the best books? I invest in the best stocks. I have a headboard. I manscape. I mean, I could like take the glasses off and, you know, like when you're nibbling, you're biting on them. It's like you know, if you ask me something and I'm biting my glasses, you know I'll come up with the answer.
But will you though? That's the real question.
And, you know, I also wanted to wear these, you know, I wanted to wear sunglasses like the kid in Big Daddy, you know, so he believes that, you know, when he's wearing the glasses, no one can see him, you know. But for this episode, I kind of have to man up so that the clear glasses are my middle ground. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to wear them, but honestly, fuck you, let me wear them is kind of where I stand with that at the moment. But I wanted to talk about my dad. I've been very private, as I mentioned, you know, my whole life when it comes to my family. Maybe not my mom, because if you follow me on social, I make my mom throw up the West Side and all these pictures and videos, and she hates it. She hates it. She dreads it. She doesn't understand it. And I'm just like, listen, Mom, there are things that, you know, I have to do and people I have to sacrifice for Instagram likes. And I have volunteered you as tribute. And so that just is what it is, you know? So I'm very private, especially you're probably, you know, if you care a little bit, you're probably like, you know what, I don't see a lot of stuff about JD's dad. And there are reasons for that. And when it comes to my family, you know, I've lived a nightlife kind of vibe since I got into this, man, since I started doing radio. I mean, I've been doing a night show for 11 or 12 years out of the 13 years I've been in radio. A lot of the things I do, you know, for my show, the formats are different. When you're doing a night show, you're not talking about your kids. You're not talking about your family. I am your boost of energy. I'm here to fire you the fuck up. I'm here to turn up. I'm here to give you that extra added vibe, whether that was to get you through homework, to get you ready for the night. You're celebrating a birthday that happened to unfortunately fall on a Tuesday. You know, I'm here to bring that to you. So I couldn't really, unless you're on a morning show, you're not really diving into the deep content of your life. And so I think it was important for me, as I'm 10 episodes deep and I've done all this fun material and done all this cool stuff, to kind of just show you a side of me. To I think there are people that, you know, I've been in Boston for 6 years. I think there are people that live here that have known me the entire time, but we've never talked about this. You know, like I've never brought up really this side of me to them. And so I felt like it was really important. And most importantly, I'm comfortable sharing it in this space. And I'll be honest, you know, this was a struggle for me putting together this episode because I was stalling, man. I was like, I was cleaning dishes, putting the dishes away, and then going back into the cupboard and re-cleaning those dishes. I was vacuuming things. I was doing everything I could, because the hardest, you know, if you went to school, the hardest papers to write, you know, it was hard to write something if you didn't start those first few lines. And so I was just avoiding getting started because I didn't know how I wanted to attack this episode, but I really felt it on my heart that with Father's Day passing and then my best friend's dad passing away, this was the right time. And I'm not doing it for clicks. You are witnessing firsthand me searching in this podcast space. I have to give you more of an insight as to who I am. That way, when we're continuing here, you know where I'm personally coming from. I'm talking about things that are going on in my life. I'm trying to find my angle in this saturated field. So all I can do is talk about things that I'm thinking about right now, and my dad is one of them. And so, yes, of course, everything that you know how people say when you're just showing the highlights of yourself on social media, to me that's bullshit, because I'm not afraid of telling you what's going on and being real. But I just choose to not share that, not because I don't want you to know that I've had pain in my life, but don't get it twisted. I've had pain in my life when it comes to my family, and I just have never I'm just very careful with who I share that with. I have a hard time trusting some people, and I'm entitled to do that. So I need to be very clear. First off, my dad is an exceptional man. He's a giving man. He's a man of faith. One of the hardest working people I know. He's never wavered in support for me and the things I've done in my life. Like, me and my pops are good. Are we in somewhat of a rebuilding phase? Sure. Like, in sports terms, I feel like I've picked up a few key free agents within the last 5 years, if that makes sense. Things are on the up and up. And that's why I was struggling putting this episode together, because I was trying not to bring up old shit that me and my dad have hashed out and moved on from. And I've talked with my dad, before this episode, understandably so, because I need to respect his feelings and not put him in this position of having to relive that trauma and at the expense of his mistakes. You feel me? And I will say that, I'll sum this up as quick as I can. I want to explain to you the relationship with my pops, because I got so much of who I am from him, and it was important that I share some of those things so you have an understanding of just, me as a person. So I'll sum this up quick, okay? Hurley, I'm going to give you the Sports Center highlights of me and my pops, okay? We're just going to zoom through. Of course, everything is deeper, and I'm trying to be very careful with how I say things. But this is my side. This is how I view it. So, in case my dad is listening, I'm just, I wanted to give that heads up. Things weren't perfect, right? But I also wanted something that was forever, like this podcast, that will celebrate my dad, but also recognize that me growing up, there were some issues. So my parents got divorced when I was in second grade. I was like 8 years old. Super close with my pops. We both love sports. If you know me, I have a huge, deep, dark issue when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, anything Oakland related. Well, now that two of my teams are fucking gone into oblivion, into other cities. We're both huge sports fans. That's what connects us. It's where I got some of that from. So the years following my parents' divorce, he married another woman who was pretty much the downfall of our relationship. And imagine me at that age, right? So it changed how he made decisions, and it costed him, with me especially. And do I have permission to speak freely here, Hurley, for a second?
Of course.
She was Satan. She was the devil in human form. She was a real-life villain that you only see in movies. She's Meredith from The Parent Trap.
Wow.
You really don't think some of those things could exist in real life. This woman was it. It was absolutely traumatizing. And it wasn't real life, and somehow the way she was talking to me and my sister, there were a lot of, she was definitely trying to separate us.
Wow.
And so somehow my dad put up with it, right? And as we continued on and it separated us, they ended up moving out of state. And that was it for me. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably what did it, right? Along with, I could just go into stories of that. Just when I look back, I'm like, bruh, like, you just can't believe a person would do that, knowing you're getting into a relationship with kids. But to be honest, and I'm just thinking this off the top, sounds like my pops had his own issues that he was dealing with, that he was willing to put up with that shit.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was willing to put up with that. So something had to have been wrong with him just as much. If he had, if he was loved you unconditionally type shit. And he's like, hey, whoa, this is like any logical person.
Yeah.
Right? And so by the time my dad snapped out of this marriage, you know, the damage had already been done in my eyes and it was too late. And we had such a surface-ass relationship throughout my junior high and high school years and even into college. And in my opinion, looking back, I had lost so many opportunities where like I felt like I needed a dad in my life, right? So to push me, to tell me if I was being soft. Okay, so there was a specific time I remember. Listen, who's your favorite baseball player? Like, do you have a favorite baseball player? Big Papi? Do you know what baseball is, Hurley? Do you know what sport I'm talking
Is that
about?
like,
it's not the touchdown one. No,
Is
it's
that like cricket?
It's close. We're getting warmer, but I think like think of your favorite baseball player. I was better than them. You know, I was exceptional. I was a Hall of Famer. But I had been babied, I think. And so when I think I was good enough where I was getting babied. And I didn't take well to someone who was trying to coach me if they were being hard on me. So when I tried out for high school, you could go to like a winter practice or something like that before the springtime, you know, to show face to the coach and shit and let him know that you were interested, you were going to be trying out. That way, when I pulled up, he wasn't just seeing me that day. Like he's seen my face before he's seen, you know, any kind of improvements. So that coach, I remember at Irvington, was so hard on me this first practice I went to. And I was like, the fuck is this guy? Like he was so rude and it turned me all the way off. But I was like really just being soft. And so I felt that would have been a perfect time to have a fatherly figure to be like, hey, he's just trying to help you improve. He's trying to make you better. And maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. And you know those life building lessons, and I didn't have that, and so I bailed on baseball. It's really one of my only regrets to this day, and I say that with like a grain of salt because you know, whatever. But I felt like had I had stuck with baseball, I would have done really, really well. But you know, when it came to, I guess, you know, or just random things that you would want help for, you know, talking to chicks, how to treat women, you know, just the man stuff around the house.
That's a very important time,
right?
Life.
Crucial. Those, you know, those teenage years, those junior high years, those high school years, those are such huge aspects of my life specifically. And luckily I grew up in a house full of women, and I have to give an enormous amount of credit to my mom, you know, and the other key figures that stepped in, but I'm going to stay on topic here about my pops. So I felt like a lot of the successes I had in high school and college, I did without him, right? So I felt like I had to learn to be a man without him. And when I succeeded in these areas in my life, he wasn't someone I felt like deserved to be a part of those celebrations. And this is, you know, this is some real shit. I'm being real. This is just my perspective. So I felt that he didn't deserve to be a part of some of those celebrations, whether it was grades, me being homecoming king. I was the MC. I was the rally commissioner in high school for 2 straight years, which hasn't been done, I think, since at my high school. And to be honest, I don't know why I haven't gotten a call yet for them to like retire a microphone, put it up in the rafters. Like I felt like I've been in line for a celebration of that magnitude.
Just a microphone hanging.
Just let it dangle, you know, like a disco ball from the gym. You know, I found my passion in high school. I found out that I wanted to do radio my senior year. And my mom would always say, you know, you're so much like your dad when it came to certain things. And I just shrugged that shit off because I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. Like me and my dad throughout, I want to say, let me be also very clear. He wasn't absent. You know, like we would have these phone conversations and they would just be, you know, how you doing? Yeah. You know, what's going on? Tell me what's new. You know, we never addressed the issues that we had head on. You know, we never had a full out anger, screaming, let the chips fall as they may kind of moment. It just lingered and was surface area stuff. And he just didn't know me early. You know what I mean? He didn't know me, especially since he was out of state. All we talked about were sports. And as I got older, you know, I noticed this. You know, I noticed these conversations, and I wanted to talk about other things because there were other things. You know, I could watch Sports Center and I know everything that was happening. It almost felt like we were on a first date. Every conversation, like if you've been out on a first date, you know you're going into the basics. And by then, you know, by me getting into college and, you know, these high school years, but we were so far behind because of the time he spent in that marriage before and the fact that he was out of state. We never visited each other. I didn't want to explain everything to him, who my friends were, places I've been, my social life, blah, blah, blah. Everything was just going so fast, and we weren't addressing the elephant in the room portion of our relationship, and it costed both of us. You know, just talking about sports and really nothing else. It was like we were resorting to weather. You know, whenever you're uncomfortable in a social setting, you talk about the weather.
Yep, it's that go-to small talk.
It's the go-to small talk. Unless you can, you know, point out, I think, you know, especially living in Boston, you can point out today's a beautiful day. We are entitled to say that when you live on the East Coast, whenever we want.
Yeah, because you don't get them.
Because we don't get them. So we're like, hey, man, this day is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, but that's what, you know, it was like we were resorting to the weather every time we would talk about sports. That's how I viewed it. Maybe he thought that was where we had common ground and that he could be able to get away with whatever. But I was, you know, I noticed it, man. And it was like, dude, there's other things. I played golf in high school, but like there are literally other things in my life. I'm not even playing sports right now. Why are we talking about it? That's not, and that I could take some blame for that. Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward into college. I could have used, especially because, man, I was grinding especially with adapting to how the difference in school, like the difference in schooling, how hard it is when you're on your own and you're figuring out you're in college classes and learning how to study what classes you can ditch, allegedly. You know, so going into when I dove into radio and even throughout, you know, my years, I could have used his business insight. So it all came down to one night, man. It was like some octagon type shit. I knew we needed to have a conversation. I would probably say when I was about 22, 23, I was just over it, man. He was the only thing in my life that could make me upset and make me emotional. Just thinking about it. It was the only thing. Not failing classes, not nothing, bro. Like this was the only thing that could get to the root of me and make me legit pissed off. And so I was tired of faking it, man. So, you know, I wanted my pops to, he had like never really yelled. You know, when you're a kid, you get yelled at for shit, you know, because, you know, like, hey, don't eat the poop, or, you know, like, leave the dead bird alone. No, don't take a bite out of it, you know. But I wanted my dad to yell at me on some like adult shit that I was doing. There was no way I was living through college and not doing something wrong. Okay? Let's just
leave it at that.
You know, if me of all people, you know? Like I was making mistakes all over the place. So I felt, you know, like my pops wasn't there to really teach me a lesson in certain aspects of my life because he didn't have the information because he was so far behind on the person I was. And to be honest, I don't know if he felt like he was entitled to. You know, I think we hadn't had that moment where, you know, you see in the movies or you see in the shows, you're like, well, you were never there for me and, you know, blah, 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 and you did this, so fuck you. I think he was like waiting for me to say that moment, or he was just like, well, if he says it, I wish he would have just said it. That way we could have gotten it out of the way if I was going to say it.
Yeah.
Are you following me? Does that make any sense?
It was just avoiding confrontation.
Correct.
Both of you guys knew it.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. 100%. And so we had gotten to this night, and I remember where we were. We were at the top of this hill in Arizona. We were driving around, and you know, just kind of going back for a second, you know, when I said that I wanted my dad to yell at me about some shit, like, you know, things I was doing wrong, you know, throughout the years of getting to know him, that's not who he is. Mm-hmm. Like, so like I didn't have that point of reference that my dad wasn't going to be that kind of person to me. He's always this positive, optimistic dude. Like, he's like, hey man, unless I was selling cocaine, you know, he wasn't going to yell at me about something. And that's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. And it could be like one of those things. Maybe it was because, you know, he didn't feel like he was entitled to. So I told him that night in Arizona that it all went down. I told him, with all the success I've had without you, I've become this man without you, made all these mistakes without you. Like, why can't I just go on without you? My dad's not a bad person, right? But this is how I felt. I'm like, dude, you're just as useful as like a homie. Like, you're just one of the homies. You're like you're not like my dad. And so, those were years that were so crucial, and I needed him, man. And I truly hadn't forgiven him for that marriage to his second wife, to that devilish creature. And I had to say all those wild, disrespectful things to his face because it's how I felt. And we couldn't move on until I said it, and I meant it, man. And I have to give my mom, once again, huge credit, because every time I'd have one of these off-the-rails emotional opinions, she was always like, I think she always knew that my dad was a good dude. She was like, hey, I understand how you feel. Let's bring it all in. Like, get that out. But, it was always I could feel in my heart that it was always a secret way of her telling me, he's a good dude. He's a good man. He just made a huge mistake. So this conversation got deep, it got raw, it got real. And in order for me to actually start that relationship with him, as an adult, I had to forgive him. And I think he needed me to tell him that I forgive him too. And mean it. And I'm not putting the blame on my dad. 'Cause let me be clear. You had called it out a few minutes ago. I dread confrontation. You bring the wrong meal to the table. If I said I wanted French fries and not mashed potatoes, I'm eating it. It doesn't matter. I don't want confrontation. I dread it in friendships. I dread it with everything.
It's normal.
Bottle it up. Just want nothing to do with it. I don't want any confrontation. If even there's to an extent where something's wrong and you have to point it out. But everything I can do to avoid confrontation, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And so, but he knew and I knew that's what this conversation had to go down. And I'm sure my dad carried that guilt for a long time. And I wanted to set him free from it because it was time. And I think I had to be willing to want a relationship in order for us to move past it. We had to jump over the past hurdle first. And, I always knew my dad was a good dude. He just made this big mistake, during this time period. And our parents make mistakes. If you're a parent, you've made mistakes. Thank God I'm not a parent. Can you imagine me as a parent right now? I'm a fucking newborn. Anyway, I didn't want to use that mistake against my dad. I wanted to address it, learn from it, move on. And I was able to forgive him because I wanted to forgive him. I wanted that. So the time was right, and it was time for us to try. And the efforts had to be on both sides. That communication is so key. And I recognize that we're going to be working on it forever, right? And so I saw it as a huge incentive to do you have any questions? Or you want to just keep letting me roll here?
Yeah. No,
okay. I don't know if I was like getting an eye from you, like you wanted to, and for let me know if I'm no. But I'm just saying, yeah. Just let me know if you're lost. That way I can.
I'm following.
Okay.
I'm listening. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I saw it as a huge incentive to ask the questions that I needed to ask, the tough ones, the whys, what went into the decision making. If we were just talking as homies, like, yo, the fuck were you thinking? And were you aware of the consequences? Like, what was your brain going through? I'm old enough and mature enough to ask this question and understand the answer. What was the breaking point? Take me through it so I can learn from it.
Yeah.
Especially if it's from like a family member. And so we're working on it. And we're doing that. We do a March Madness trip to Vegas every year, the last 5 or 6 years. It's a tradition. It's a tradition that on his way out on that Sunday, I'm on my way into the hotel. So he's on his way out to the flight. Like, he leaves so early. Dad, if you're listening, stop leaving so early. So if we're there for the weekend, right? If we're there for the weekend, that Sunday, when he leaves, he gets like a 7 a.m. flight.
Oh.
I have no idea why. No clue. He wants to get back. He has work to do, whatever.
Yeah.
we have the hotel room till later, right? And so, like when he's on his way out because he has to leave so early, I'm on my way in from the chain smokers at Excess.
Oh, I see. I thought you said you were on your way in like for a flight. It's
No,
like
no,
you guys
no,
don't even
no. Like, you know, we give each other high fives on the way out. Like, hey, good to thank you, sir. You know, it's a great trip. Checkouts at 11 or noon, and that was fun. Gotcha. You know, so like that's always been the tradition. And plus, we just enjoy watching hoops. And March Madness out in Vegas is crazy. And so, you know, that's a step one of us kind of like, because, you know, we just never had any. Our family has never really done like family trips or, you know. And let me be also very transparent. I'm not like upset at any of that. Mm-hmm. You know, like I don't like look at people who are on family trips or, you know, have great relationships with their parents or siblings and be like, oh my God, I wish that was me. To an extent, I'm just telling you how I felt about my dad of what aspects in my life that I needed him. But I'm not envy. Everybody else has their own issues. So I don't play that envy or wish I wasn't someone, or, you know, I don't, that is some weird territory. Also, you know, and for me, I got to do my part too. So my dad, you know, he takes care of this Vegas trip, but I go out for Thanksgiving now. Whereas before in my life, normally I was working, but when I was able to have the opportunity, I would just go home to the Bay to see my mom, or I would kick it here in Boston or in Arizona and just, you know, have Thanksgiving with friends. But I had to make the effort to be like, all right, we're going to do Thanksgiving. Like good divorced parents, you know, like a good divorced kid, you know, like go to, yay, 2 Christmases. You know, you go to Christmas one place, you went to Thanksgiving another spot. So, you know, I go out and I do Thanksgiving every year with my dad and his wife. He remarried and their family's awesome. The daughters are awesome. And
that's great.
And I'm super glad that we figured things out because I see so much of him in myself, you know, the way we work, how hard we work, the way I do business. And have I ever given you a nickname?
Like for me?
Yeah, like H Dog or, you know, like, so I got that from my dad on accident. There's no way he'll take credit for it.
Yeah.
But I didn't know the root of how evil this trait is until, you know, we started kicking it more. I give like people nicknames like
you gave your dad a nickname?
Pops. I call him Pops.
That's it, just Pops? Okay.
Yeah, or, you know, I call him Geezer.
Geezer.
Yeah. On accident.
Sure he loves that one.
On accident, man. Like, and you know, like he calls one of my stepsisters, her name is Savannah, calls her Savannah, Georgia.
What does he call you?
Buck. Because I had buck teeth. That's a great question, by the way. But yeah, he calls me Buck. He calls my sister Scooter because she used to, you know, scoot around the house, you know, when she was crawling.
That's fun.
It's everywhere. It's in every aspect of my life. And that's where I got it from. I'm not proud of that. But it happens so naturally to me, man. So if you've gotten a nickname from me or I call you something, it's my dad's fault. You know, I catch myself doing it all the time. You know, how I pronounce words, you know, how dramatic sometimes when I say things, it's all from him. Like you know, like when you've caught yourself talking like your parents, has that ever happened to you? Like the way you say something, or
my parents kind of have Boston accents. So like sometimes like it'll slip out, but usually I say my R's.
Out? Yeah, I was gonna say I've never.
If I'm talking like really fast and like have just like a lot of thoughts going through my head, sometimes I'll like say words kind of strange. But that just might be because like whatever, my head's moving faster than my mouth.
You have like accent Tourette's.
I guess so. They don't. Yeah, see, theirs isn't like the deep Boston accent, but I always make fun of them for it whenever they say like, you know.
Yeah.
Because they add the R's onto words that don't need R's, and they take them away from words that actually have R's.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, you know, you pronounce cities however you want here. You know, I found out the hard way on air that Quincy, that is spelled with a C, and in the English language, when you learn in school, and there's still no, I know we're sidetracked here, but there's no justification for calling it Quincy. There's no justification. I'm waiting for the first person to tell me.
I was actually just thinking about that today because there had to be one person that started the whole, all right, this is how it's pronounced. Because obviously, like, the only way that people from around here know how to correctly, quote unquote,
quote unquote, yeah,
pronounce Quincy is because they've been told that's how to say it. That's the weirdest part about it.
And if you're not from here, for no reason, I'm trying to think of a historical moment, or, someone said something, during like a big speech, or Kennedy did something.
Maybe John Quincy Adams himself was like, it's actually...
Yeah. So if I'm learning Quincy in school, I'm a history major. I've never said Quincy Adams. So that's so funny. So yeah, I mean, I get my charisma from my pops. I get my social skills from my dad, my passion, my optimism. And unfortunately for a lot of you, I get my shit talking from my dad. Now, my dad, if you're listening, he's soft with his he's more of the actions type guy, whereas like I yearn to get in your head first. Mm-hmm. And so, I think he's fallen off a little bit when it comes to shit talking. I'm on my game. I'm Gary Payton. I'm yap
yourself.
Yeah. And all of my friends, especially whenever this episode drops, the Suns will still be in the playoffs. Like, Suns fans hate me right now. I'm just constantly on my friends. And so just kind of tying a bow on this thing, I hope that was a general insight kind of to, because, when I was putting it together, I was talking to my mom last night, and I was like, to be honest, none of this shit is like, when I was writing it didn't seem like a big deal to me, maybe because I'm older, but I think during the time, that's just what the pain it caused me. Because when I look back, I'm like, dude, my dad never beat me or like had substance abuse problems or that I'm aware of. But he like I have it. When I was thinking, I was like, dude, do I even deserve to tell this story? Because it's not that bad if you're just viewing it on the outside,
Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Sure.
I mean, even if their fathers were around during their adolescence, they may have not have been as involved as they were hoping they would be.
Right.
Whereas for you had the extreme, your dad physically wasn't even there.
Right.
You just got the weekly phone call or so.
Great point. And sometimes it even went longer than that. And so, when I was putting it together, it was such a struggle, because it was just like, man, I don't want people to feel bad. I was just trying to express this side of me to let you know that amongst all this turn up and fun content that I enjoy putting out, like, it doesn't go without a price. Like, every family has their thing. I'm very grateful that it's not extreme, man, because, like, kids don't be asking for that shit. Mm-hmm. So I just, thank God my dad that was his issue, because it could have been way worse, is all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So, my hope for the podcast today for episode 7 are monumental. I mean, we've made it. We're past 7.
Yeah. 3 past 7.
3 past 7. So I'm double digit,
I honestly
man.
probably shouldn't have told you because now you're going to get in your head about it. You'll be like, oh, am I running out of content?
Yeah. If I just give up, I'm like, well, to be honest, I went above and beyond in the podcast world. Yeah.
Well, I hit it. Time to retire.
My hope for the podcast is that you needed to hear this to address some of the relationships in your life that you've been avoiding, maybe you've been fearful of, you're unsure of. Is that a friend? Is that your mom or dad? Is it a best friend? Is it a coworker? Is it a sibling? Is it an in-law, a relative? You'll at least, get some closure, or even better, start to something awesome, because it's been such a reward for me, and I can only speak for myself. It's been such a reward for me to find out more of who my pops is. Especially from the business side. The man is just a fucking genius, and for the longest time, I couldn't even tell you what my dad did. Like, even though he was present, he probably told me a million times when people were like, oh, what's your dad do? I had no fucking idea. No clue. I would just like take a swing. And it was just like, I couldn't tell you what his profession was. And I knew he started a church, with my family when I was younger. And I knew, he was a pastor, but post-pastor, no clue, zero. I didn't pay attention. I wasn't willing to listen, and I didn't know. So, at being 33, it's been like just saying, it's been a reward to find out more of who he is and asking the tough questions, knowing that I can accept the answers. Like, be an open book, bruh. Like, tell me everything. Tell me about what you were going through. Tell me more about my grandpa, like that, his side of the family. There's just there's so many roots, and it's really exciting for me, because I'm completely self-aware and grounded and present, knowing that that's a luxury that I refuse to take for granted, because some people don't have that chance, or were looking for it. Like, bro, like my best friend's dad died of a stroke, and he was like the healthiest person I knew.
Wow.
So life is crazy, and I wanted something on forever that to celebrate my pops, to let him know that we are good. It is full steam ahead. It's a process, but if you needed that extra push in your relationships around you, take it from someone who just dreads confrontation to the nth degree. You got to knock it out. You got to see what's on the other side.
Very good for you for doing that.
You got to do it.
Yep.
And it's a luxury. So, take advantage of the opportunity to put yourself out there, not because you want to, but because you've wanted to. Mm-hmm. I'll say it one more time, not because you want to, but because you've wanted to. So this has been episode 7 of the It's Always Something podcast. Make sure you follow us on IG at It's Always Something with an _ and at the actual JD. Keep it real. Love y'all.